My name's Sigrid Wonsil, and I went to school at Illinois State University and was a student of Harold Greger. But first, I went to Mundelein College, dropped out, had 4 children who went off to college before I did, and then I went back to Elgin Community College, University of Illinois for my bachelor's, and then ISU. Let's see, I started in 92 and finished in 96. Actually 95, but it took me a year to write my paper. Well, I'm a painter, printmaker. So, and actually I was telling Sally that the reason I came to ISU was because I heard there was a teacher there who taught about color. And that turned out to be Harold Greger. And it was well worth it. I learned a lot about color theory, and I was also a printmaker, and that was Ray George. And he was my role model as a teacher. So since then, I went back to Elgin Community College, and I've been teaching there for 26 years. I remember I was an older student, and I had a companion older student, Davida Schulman, and the two of us were not intimidated. He had horrible puns, and so we would retaliate with horrible puns. And I think the younger students were scared of Harold. But we really enjoyed the banter, the back and forth banter, and I really, really liked the color theory, and I really got a lot out of that class. In fact, I still use so much of that theory in my teaching, and I found out that color is seems to be the easiest way to bridge teaching with people who have no art experience at all and no art history training at all. So, that relational color, having them do exercises in relational color just sparks something in students. And it's worked for 25, 26 years. Oh, now the watercolor class, I think that was intimidating, very intimidating, and I think it took me about 10 years to recover from that class. I walked out of there with an inferiority complex. I did learn about English watercolor, the Gamboge yellow, the indigo blue, and the iron oxide red, and that I've used a lot, and that's been very helpful. That alone was worth the course. But as far as, I don't think I produced a single decent watercolor in that entire class. It was just too intimidating. Exactly. Well, and that's another reason I had such an inferiority complex coming out of watercolors, because I had Davida Schulman next to me. And Davida taught herself, she was self-taught. When she said she used to do laundry, and then she would check out books from the library and try a technique, and she would paint a little, do the laundry, paint a little, but by the time she got to graduate school, she was incredibly skilled, and she could paint reflections, she could paint double reflections, and in watercolor. But we got to be very good friends. She would take me up to Door County. We would spend 10 days every spring and paint all during the day. And then in the evening, there was a whole group of us. We would have show and tell. And I have some really good paintings from that period. But again, I was always overshadowed by her skill, and And it wasn't just skill. Davida had an agenda. She had she was going through her family history and through ideology and feminism and putting it, dismembering dolls and painting that, and so and painting herself nude, and it was so yeah, and we remained friends after graduation. We did travel together, went to Vermont studios. We did a lot together. Other students, I've kept up with a few other students, but mostly was with Davida. Well, it's been, 25, since 93, it's been a long time, and I just love to see what everybody's been doing and what direction their work took. My watercolors, by the way, wound up being like Raoul Dufy, which is a far stretch from Harold Greger, but it's just, so I just like to know where everybody ended up. Or where they're going. I hope they're still progressing in some direction. Mm-hmm. Well, and that was so intimidating because in the class, because every week there'd be something that somebody took a lifetime to develop. You were expected to imitate in a week's time, and then switch gears and go and do something else. And then in another week, maybe you got part of it. Maybe another week, then it was time to switch gears again. And it was tough. Because I met Uncle Bob in the drawing class. Who had that? Ken Holder's drawing class. And he was having a mini stroke, and I was a nurse, and I remember his blood pressure was up in the stratosphere. I couldn't get him to go to the hospital. In fact, he did have, eventually I called his wife, and he got as far as the doctor's office, and the doctor put him in the hospital. And when he came back, it was my job. I took it on myself to take his blood pressure every few days. So I got to, as his personal self-appointed nurse, I took a personal interest in him, and I bought for the beginning of my art collection, I bought one of his charcoals. It was a square barn. It was the one I saw on I-55 just outside of Pontiac. I don't know if that was his inspiration, but anyhow, that was the beginning of my art collection. And at the time, it was pretty poor. I was lucky I could afford that. And afterwards, when I started dating Tom, and he started buying some of Uncle Bob's work. There's one painting, and it was a pastel of a redhead. It was nothing but red hair all over the drawing. It's in my office now at home, and I remember Uncle Bob didn't think much of the drawing, but it's wonderful, and it's all quirky, just like Uncle Bob. But Davida and I, once we graduated, we took him under our wing, and we had him show at around the Coyote. He had one show in Chicago that Ken Holder and Harold Greger arranged, and I think they even had a Tribune reporter come and review. They wrote an article. And then I think Ken Holder, well, not too long ago, Ken and Harold, who else? Probably not. Maybe it was Marlene. I don't know who arranged it, but he had a solo show here in Bloomington at a gallery. Mm-hmm. And I arranged for a show for him in Woodstock. Anyhow, so he got, when his wife had dementia and he moved back to New Jersey, I ended up with all his work. It was either that or it would have been thrown away. So I've been keeping his work, and he keeps sending me work, and now I'm able to send him a check now and then for some work. and I've been keeping it, and I wish I could do more for him, but I do what I can.
I first met Bob when he was not registered for a class, but attending a painting class with Harold. And
Oh, he took a painting class?
yeah, yeah, and Harold was not happy that he wasn't enrolled, that he was just sitting in. But they were able to resolve that. But yeah, gosh, that would have been 89, 90, something like that.
Oh, yeah, that was well before, it was at least 5 years before
Yeah.
I met him.
Yeah.
Yeah, and by the time I met him, he already had his style. And yes, he had a big sheet of paper on the wall, and he would start out, let's see, he'd start out with a rock that turned into a bear, that turned into a building, that turned into a sailor, or two sailors fighting. It was just fun to watch this thing develop on the wall. But I was really glad when he switched from pastel and charcoal to acrylic paint, because the stuff didn't come off.
Yeah, much healthier. Yeah. Good.
Yeah. Yeah, and he gave me his earlier work, and you could see where he was academic to begin with, and he really knew his art history. I was surprised. He really did study art history, but by the time I met him, he had his own style, and it was linear and flat, and you had to step back to get that feeling of space, and quirky. And I think that's my favorite, when he has this red hair. He had a red head with the hair was blowing across the cornfield, but it was blowing. The hair is blowing behind the silo. I mean, and he knew, but it's not that he didn't know better. He just decided that's how it should be.
Nice. That's great.
And do you want to hear anything about Davida?
Oh, yeah, please do.
Because
Yeah,
they can't
Yeah,
speak.
anything you can share about her, that'd be wonderful.
And I know she got her bachelor's at U of I, and that was in Chicago, and she also met her husband there. And then, and her children were in high school when she came to U of I, no, to ISU. And the two of us, we each thought the other one was the instructor when we met the first day before class started. We were the two old ladies. We're in our 40s. And so, of course, we got the studio space together, and Vida was Jewish, and but she was atheist Jewish. I've never and humanist. So I came from Catholic school, so we had a lot to talk about, a lot, and we did a lot of reading together, and we liked classical music. Because I grew up in Austria, so and you had to love Mozart, and you had to adore Mozart, and at least. And then I loved Beethoven, and my family was somehow related to Dvorak, so it was classical music and Alvin Ailey dance, and so we had a lot in common. Besides just, and then the kids, teenage kids, yeah.
So you would paint together, and you'd go to Door County together.
And we went to Door County together. And one time we went to Nebraska together to judge an art show. And we were brutal. The people who invited us loved it. And the people who were doing the traditional big flowers hated us. But we did go after we made the awards and everything. This was Valentine, Nebraska, where they have waterfalls in Nebraska. Did you know that they have waterfalls? It's in the northeast corner,
okay.
No, northwest corner.
Yeah. My family's from Nebraska.
Oh, really?
Yeah, my dad's from New York, my mom's from Greeley. Greeley's near Grand Island. So I grew up, because my dad was an actuary, and we spent all of our childhood with him studying, so we'd go to Nebraska every summer for sometimes months.
Oh,
Yeah.
but it's flat and corn just about everywhere except up there in that
Well,
corner.
yeah, until you get to the western half where the sand hills
And this was the Sand Hills.
yeah.
Yeah, well, we got a little tour, but anyhow, after we did all the judging, we went back and we told everyone how we judged. I remember we went piece by piece, and we told and explained why we did not like the traditional watercolors, because they showed skill, but did not necessarily show any innovation, any thought, anyhow. By the time we got through, I think we had a few converts, and the winner, the prize winner, was as shocked as we were that she got that she won. But I think we were invited because I think they thought that we were a lesbian couple. And I think they were disappointed.
Nice.
And then another thing I remember about that trip is that there was a tornado coming up, and I remember telling Davida to just drive like hell, so we wouldn't get picked up and go to Kansas. So, but and let's see, we went on. We did a residency in Hungary at Lake Balaton together. And Davida fell where she fell, broke her ankle, and wound up having to paint with her leg up in the air for 2 weeks. It wasn't much of a residency for her. She didn't get to see too much, but she did some wonderful paintings, and because we couldn't make anything big, she had self-portraits, but they were pieces, and sometimes she'd shuffle them when she showed them. So she could still manage to do something inventive with them, and then with Davida it was the idea. She was technically perfect, but the idea was the important thing.
She passed 5 years
She
ago.
passed 5 years ago. It was Hodgkin's.
Anything else you'd like to add?
But she has two sons and one grandson who's absolutely adorable. Yeah.
Nice. That's great.
So yeah, I can't think of too much else except, oh yes, my other teacher, that was Cynthia Kukla. I'm trying to think where else I traveled with Davida, but no. But I did manage to. Cynthia took me to Estonia, and I did a presentation in Tallinn, 15 Minutes of Fame in Peter the Great's summer palace, and got to go back for residencies twice. And once with one of my students who's become really well-known. She's Korean, and she took me to Korea, and so I've got to show my work in Korea and China. So